They reached the far edge of the catwalk and paused. Below them, a network of cooling ducts and service corridors stretched into darkness, a web of potential escape routes. Above, distant lights indicated that patrols continued their search, relentless, precise. Patch's voice chimed softly. All external scans indicate temporary clearance. Estimated safe window, 22 minutes. Enough, Rhea murmured. She crouched beside the child. We rest, plan, then move. There's a path through the lower reactor sector that leads outside the main station. From there, we can think bigger, escape, regroup, figure out our next move. Luma glanced at her, eyes bright despite exhaustion. You'll stay with me. Always, Rhea said, squeezing her hand. I'll keep you alive, no matter what. The child leaned slightly into her, trusting and small, her glow reflecting in the metal walls. Rhea allowed herself a moment to breathe, to acknowledge the weight of what they'd survived. The Empire's reach was vast, unyielding, but for now, they had a chance. A fragile, precious chance. The elevator doors hissed above them as distant movement signaled that the patrols had passed their last checkpoint. Rhea and Luma were alone, for now. The memory sphere rested between them, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat, a reminder of both the past they carried and the future they could still shape. Rest, Rhea whispered. We've earned it, for a few minutes. Luma sat on a crate, her small form illuminated by the gentle glow of the sphere. Rhea leaned against the wall, watching the child and the pulsing light, feeling a rare moment of peace. The hunt was far from over. The Emperor would not rest, Admiral Kale would not relent. But here, in the shadowed underbelly of the station, they had survived another step, and that was enough to carry them forward. Rhea's thoughts hardened. The chase would continue, the dangers would escalate, but one truth remained: they were together. And together, they could face whatever the Empire sent to reclaim what was theirs. The station hummed around them, oblivious to the small rebellion threading through its veins. And as the glow of the memory sphere pulsed softly between them, Rhea allowed herself a fleeting, resolute thought. They would not be caught, not yet, not ever, not while she still drew breath. The hunt had ended for now. But the story, their story, was only beginning. The maintenance hub was silent except for the hum of failing lights and the distant heartbeat of the station's core. Rhea crouched beside Luma, her hands resting lightly on the child's shoulders, guiding her toward a small alcove behind a bank of cooling conduits. The memory sphere's glow pulsed softly in the dim light, steadying the child's anxiety and marking the fragile line between safety and exposure. Stay low, Rhea whispered. We're almost at the elevator shaft. It'll take us deeper into sections they won't bother scanning for a while. Luma nodded, small shoulders tense but determined. Deeper, like a hiding place. Rhea shook her head. Not hiding. Moving smart. Staying ahead. There's a difference. You need to learn it fast. The child tilted her head, trust evident in her glowing eyes. I'll follow you. Rhea allowed herself a brief smile, despite the knot of tension in her chest. Good. That's exactly what I need you to do. They crept across the floor, careful to avoid pressure-sensitive panels and stray conduits sparking with erratic energy. Each step was calculated. One slip, one misstep, and the Empire's search would descend upon them. Rhea's palms were slick, her boots silent on the metal, but her mind raced through contingencies, escape routes, and fallback positions. The elevator shaft was ahead, a vertical drop framed by metal rails and glowing safety indicators. Rhea knelt beside the control panel, scanning for electronic locks. As she worked, she could hear the faint hum of patrol drones above and the distant, rhythmic echo of boots, precision hunters, closing in without hesitation. Patch's voice crackled in her earpiece. Alert, Imperial search teams recalibrating. Estimated interception of your sector within 5 minutes. Noted, Rhea muttered, fingers flying across the panel. Sparks flared from the control interface as she bypassed the lock, overriding multiple security protocols. The shaft doors hissed open, revealing the inner car suspended on cables and pulleys, waiting like a fragile promise of escape. Careful, Rhea said, turning to Luma. Step in slowly. I've got you. The child followed, stepping into the car with the sphere clutched tightly. Her small hand shook, but she kept her gaze fixed on Rhea, as if the human mechanic's steady presence alone could shield her from the Empire's reach. Rhea stepped in behind her, heart pounding, pulse synchronized with the low hum of the station. The doors closed with a hiss, and the car began its descent. The vertical walls of the shaft seemed endless, a metallic canyon illuminated by dim maintenance lights. Luma's glow flickered, reacting to the electromagnetic energy that surged around them. "They can't track us here," Rhea whispered. "For a while, at least. We're in their blind spot." The child's voice was soft, tentative. "Will we be safe down there?" "Safe enough to plan," Rhea said. "But danger is part of this. You need to remember that. We survive not by avoiding danger, but by outsmarting it." Luma absorbed her words silently, her gaze shifting to the sphere in her lap. The holographic images flickered, faces, moments, memories of her life in the palace, and the stern, unyielding image of the Emperor. The child flinched. "They'll come for me," she whispered. "They will," Rhea admitted. "But not today. Not while I'm here. You're not alone, Luma. And we fight smart. Together." The elevator slowed, coming to a halt at the auxiliary maintenance level. The doors hissed open, revealing a labyrinth of service tunnels and suspended catwalks, dimly lit and largely abandoned. It was a network few humans traversed, much less Imperial patrols. For the first time in hours, Rhea allowed herself a flicker of hope. "Stay close," she said, leading Luma out of the car. "We move fast, but steady. Watch the edges. Some of these walkways aren't maintained." The child followed, her glow subdued but steady, illuminating just enough of the path to move safely. Rhea kept one hand near the tools strapped to her belt, tools turned weapons, if needed, and another lightly resting on Luma's shoulder, guiding and protecting. The child obeyed, stepping carefully, hands brushing the railing, sphere clutched close. Rhea followed, scanning for any thermal signatures. Their path was precarious, but it was obscured, hidden from casual detection. For the first time in hours, Rhea allowed herself a glimmer of hope. Halfway across the catwalk, Luma's glow flickered sharply, a pulse of memory from the sphere. Images of her father, stern, commanding, unyielding, flashed in the narrow corridor of her mind. The child flinched. "They're going to find me," she whispered, voice small. Rhea's hand tightened on hers. "Maybe. But not yet. Not today. You're not alone." The girl nodded, her courage renewed by the touch. Together, they pressed onward, careful, deliberate, threading their way through the shadowed network of service platforms. The station hummed around them, a living labyrinth of steel and energy, indifferent to the lives it carried within. At the far end of the catwalk, a hatch opened into an old maintenance hub, a cavernous space lit only by dim emergency lights. It was mostly abandoned, offering a temporary reprieve. Rhea set Luma down gently on a crate. "Rest," she said softly. "Just for a few minutes." The child's glow softened as she sank onto the crate, sphere held close. Rhea allowed herself a rare moment of calm, chest heaving. The hunt was far from over, but for the first time in hours, they had a fraction of safety. Patch's voice buzzed softly. "Predictive models indicate patrols will reach this sector within 8 minutes. Recommend further movement soon." "I know," Rhea said. Her eyes met Luma's, resolute. "But for now, just breathe. We're still ahead." Luma's small hands tightened around the sphere. "I trust you, Rhea." Rhea gave a small, tired smile. "Then we'll keep going. Together." Outside, the station's hum continued, oblivious to the small rebellion unfolding in its veins. And for Rhea, guiding the Emperor's daughter through the labyrinth of metal, power, and danger, the chase was far from over, but they had survived another step, and that was enough to keep hope alive. The maintenance platform was silent except for the low hum of energy conduits running along the walls. Rhea crouched behind a structural support, listening. Far above, the distant echo of patrols vibrated through the steel floors. They were close, closing in, methodical, precise, but for the moment, the platform offered a fragile sanctuary. Luma sat beside her, the memory sphere resting lightly in her lap. Its glow had dimmed to a soft amber, pulsing with her heartbeat. The child's eyes flickered toward Rhea, wide with both fear and trust. "Are they still looking for me?" she asked softly. "They are," Rhea said, voice low. "But for now, we're ghosts. That's our advantage. Stay quiet, stay invisible." The child nodded, though her small hand tightened instinctively around the sphere. Rhea reached over, brushing a hand over hers. The warmth of the gesture was small, human, and for a moment, it anchored both of them amidst the mechanical maze. They needed a route forward, deeper into the station's underbelly, somewhere the Empire's sensors would hesitate to scan. Rhea accessed her wrist console, pulling up a holographic map. The next section led into the station's cooling networks, labyrinthine ducts of metal and coolant fluid, narrow and hazardous, but largely unmapped. It was a gamble. "Down the cooling ducts," she said finally. "It's tight, dangerous, but it keeps us out of sight. Can you do that?" Luma's small shoulders squared. "Yes." Rhea exhaled, impressed. The child's resolve mirrored her father's in ways she hadn't expected. Courage forged in isolation and expectation, tempered by necessity. "Good. Then let's go." They moved cautiously, ducking under exposed conduits and stepping over piping. Sparks hissed sporadically, arcing faintly from damaged panels. Each flash illuminated Luma's delicate features, eyes reflecting the pale light. Rhea couldn't let herself dwell on how fragile the child was. The moment they paused too long, danger could strike. Patch's voice buzzed softly in her earpiece. "Caution advised. Thermal scans indicate patrol sweep approaching from your previous sector. Estimated interception in 4 minutes." "Noted," Rhea whispered. Her hands were steady, but her pulse had quickened. They had to move faster. The duct entrance loomed ahead, narrow and metallic, lined with warning strips that glowed faintly. Rhea knelt to check its integrity. The surface shimmered with residual heat from the reactor below. One slip, one misstep, and they could be burned, or worse, trapped. "You first," she murmured to Luma. The child hesitated, looking up with wide, luminous eyes. I can't see well in there." "You don't need to see," Rhea said, brushing a hand over her shoulder. "Just trust me and feel the path. I'll guide you." With a quiet breath, Luma squeezed the memory sphere and slid into the duct. Rhea followed, careful not to make a sound. The space was tight, oppressive, and smelled of ozone and heated metal. Each movement required precision. Sparks leapt from exposed wiring overhead, and the walls hummed with the station's latent energy. "Keep close," Rhea whispered. "And slow. We don't want anyone knowing we're here." Luma's small hand slid along the walls, following the vibrations of Rhea's movements. Her glow pulsed faintly, reacting to the electromagnetic interference, casting tiny shifting shadows. The girl's trust was total, yet Rhea could sense the fear coiled beneath her composure. Halfway through the duct, a tremor ran along the floor, patrol drones scanning nearby. Rhea froze, pressing against the wall, heart hammering. Luma instinctively did the same, her body rigid. The hum of the station amplified the tension, vibrating through metal and bone alike. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. Then, finally, the vibrations faded. Rhea exhaled slowly. "All right. Safe for now. Keep moving." They continued, inch by inch, the narrow metallic corridor winding deeper into the station. Rhea's mind calculated every turn, every junction, searching for the next access hatch that would take them to a more stable section of the underdeck. Above them, the Empire's sensors recalibrated, unaware that their quarry had vanished into the shadows. At the next junction, Rhea paused, listening. She could hear the faint hiss of coolant pumps below and the distant clank of a maintenance bot above. The place was alive, but mostly indifferent, an advantage they could exploit. "Through here," Rhea whispered, pointing to a secondary hatch that led into a service catwalk suspended above the coolant channels. "It's narrow, but it'll take us deeper. After that, we can finally rest for a moment." Luma's eyes widened at the view, a labyrinth of pipes, glowing coolant, and suspended walkways. "It's so high," she whispered. "Don't look down," Rhea said. "Just keep moving." "That's why we move fast. Eyes open, hands ready, and follow me exactly." They crawled onward, the corridor twisting, the hum of machinery growing louder as they approached the reactor's core stabilizers. The temperature rose. The walls radiated energy, warm against their skin. Sparks arced across exposed panels, illuminating Rhea's determined face in brief flashes. "Almost there," she whispered, though the distance seemed endless. Ahead, a faint light indicated the secondary exit leading into a shadowed maintenance platform. From there, they could access service elevators that would take them deep into restricted sections, temporarily safe from patrols. Luma looked up at Rhea, her expression a mixture of awe and exhaustion. "Will we ever be safe?" Rhea paused, brushing a smudge of grime from her forehead. "Safe? Not really. But smart, careful, and invisible, that's enough for now. That's how we survive." The child nodded, understanding in her eyes. She followed closely as Rhea tested the final hatch. The lock yielded with a soft hiss, opening onto the platform. The glow from the sphere softened as the shadows swallowed them. Rhea let herself relax, just a fraction, watching Luma adjust her grip on the memory sphere. The child's confidence, hard-won through fear and instinct, was remarkable. But the Empire's shadow was never far. Somewhere above, patrols recalculated, sensors sharpened, and Kale's command would soon demand action. Rhea exhaled, letting the hum of the station fill the silence between them. They were a step ahead, yes, but every step carried weight. "Let's keep moving," she whispered. "We've made it this far, but the real challenge starts now." Luma's glow flickered in agreement. Together, they stepped into the platform, the shadows swallowing their forms, carrying memory, courage, and defiance deeper into the heart of the station. Somewhere high above, the Empire recalculated. The hunt had changed shape, but the chase was far from over. And Rhea, a human mechanic armed with nothing but instinct and grit, knew the next move could decide not just their survival, but the fate of a princess whose life weighed heavier than any machine she had ever fixed. Rhea crouched beside her, brushing a strand of metallic hair from her eyes. "Yeah, but we don't get to choose safe. We get to choose smart. This is smart." The child hesitated, then took a deep breath and followed. Rhea guided her through the cramped space, every movement precise. Sparks arced faintly from exposed wiring, the air humming with electrical potential. She reached out to steady Luma when a sudden discharge leapt across the conduit. The child flinched, but Rhea's grip held her firm. "You all right?" she whispered. "Yes," Luma said, swallowing hard. "I trust you." The word struck Rhea harder than any attack could. She had grown used to fixing machines, broken engines, and drones, but this, protecting a living being, someone with memories, someone who carried the weight of a throne, was different. The stakes were immeasurable. A vibration ran through the walls beneath their feet. Rhea froze, listening. The sound of approaching patrols, precise and mechanical, echoed through the chamber. Thermal scanners would pick them up if they weren't careful. "Down," Rhea whispered. They flattened against the conduit walls, letting the sound pass overhead. Luma's glow dimmed to near invisibility. The small figure trembled, but stayed silent, breathing shallow. When the threat passed, Rhea exhaled. That was too close. Luma's voice was barely audible. "Do you think they'll ever stop looking?" Rhea shook her head. "Not until someone decides you're not worth finding. But we're not giving them that satisfaction." The maintenance shaft opened into a service bay, a cavernous space lined with reactors, cooling towers, and conduits pulsing with energy. It was deserted, quiet, but the hum of the systems resonated like a heartbeat. Rhea's eyes scanned the hall, searching for the next conduit that would take them further into obscurity. Pat's voice sounded again, calm and analytical. "Alternate route mapped. Minimal exposure. Estimated time to next junction, 6 minutes. Probability of detection if delayed, 83%. Noted," Rhea muttered. "Move." Luma followed, moving cautiously along the shadows, the sphere's glow faint but steady. Rhea glanced at her, marveling at the child's courage. The girl was small, yes, but she carried herself with a weight and determination that belonged to someone far older. Someone molded by expectation and responsibility, yet still inherently human, inherently vulnerable. They reached the next junction, a service hatch leading to the reactor's lower stabilization ducts. Rhea tested the latch. It was electronically sealed. She scanned the panel with her console, fingers flying over the controls. Sparks flared as she bypassed the lock, heart hammering. The hatch slid open, revealing a narrow, dark conduit lit only by faint warning strips. "Through here," Rhea said, kneeling to help Luma. "Careful. It's narrow, and one slip." "I know," Luma whispered, stepping through. The conduit was oppressive, the heat from the nearby reactor walls rising in waves. Rhea pressed her hands against the metal to keep balance, guiding the child forward. Each step required concentration. Each miscalculation could be fatal. As they moved, Luma's glow pulsed in rhythm with the sphere, reacting to the electromagnetic energy around them. Holographic fragments shimmered briefly in the air. Memories, moments, flickers of a past the girl had once lived, and images of the Emperor himself. Luma flinched, clutching the sphere tighter. "They know where I am," she whispered. Rhea's jaw tightened. "Not yet. But soon." That. They crawled deeper into the maze of service conduits, each step calculated, each movement a silent promise of survival. Rhea marveled at Luma's composure, how a child raised in a palace could possess such courage, such understanding of danger. It was instinctual, honed by isolation and expectation, and yet there was something inherently human in the fear that glimmered beneath it. After several tense minutes, the conduit opened into a maintenance access hall, dark, wide, and largely abandoned. Pipes ran along the ceiling, and the floor panels hummed with concealed machinery. Here, the child could move without glowing like a beacon. Rhea crouched behind a structural support, scanning the hall. "Think we can cross?" Luma asked quietly. "Yeah," Rhea said, voice low. "But we stick to shadows and avoid the floor panels. Some of these are pressure sensitive. Step wrong, and alarms go off." The child nodded. "I'll follow exactly." They crept forward, shadows swallowing them, every footstep a silent calculation. Rhea's mind worked frantically, plotting contingencies, escape routes, fallback positions. She could hear the distant hum of the patrols, the click of boots over metal, the faint vibrations of automated scanners. Time was slipping. The Empire's search would converge, inevitably. Halfway across the hall, the memory sphere pulsed faintly in Luma's lap. A projection flickered, images of people, places, moments long past. One figure loomed larger than the rest, a man in imperial robes, commanding, authoritative. The Emperor. Luma flinched. "They know where I am," she whispered. Rhea tightened her jaw. "Not yet. But they will. That's why we hurry." The hall narrowed ahead, feeding into a service hatch that led to the reactor stabilization sector. Dangerous, yes, but relatively hidden from automated scans. Rhea paused, resting her hands on her knees. She looked down at Luma. "You trust me?" she asked again. The girl's eyes met hers, steady and unflinching. "Always." Rhea exhaled, a rare moment of calm amid chaos. "Good. Let's finish this." They moved forward, inch by inch, every shadow a shield, every silent step a victory. The pulse of the station vibrated beneath their feet, a constant reminder that the world above, and the Emperor himself, was hunting them. As they reached the hatch, Rhea's hand hovered over the control panel. One final obstacle. The hatch was electronically sealed, requiring a combination of mechanical override and digital trickery. She glanced at Luma. "You ready?" she asked. The child nodded, gripping the sphere tightly. Rhea twisted open the panel, bypassed the lock, and the hatch slid upward with a hiss. Warm air from the sector above rushed past them. They exchanged a quick, determined look. Together, they climbed through, emerging into the half-lit, humming chamber of the reactor's auxiliary wing. The faint glow of exposed conduits and safety indicators bathed them in pale light. Rhea exhaled, letting herself relax for just a fraction. "Made it," she said softly. "For now." Luma glanced around, awe and relief mingling in her eyes. "It's so big." "Yeah," Rhea said, voice low. "And it's not going to forgive us if we stay too long. Come on. We keep moving." Somewhere above, The station thrummed with the weight of imperial pursuit. But down here, amid the heat, the humming energy, and the tangled conduits, two small figures pressed onward, defiant and alive, carrying the fragile glow of memory and courage into the heart of danger. And for the first time in the chase, Rhea allowed herself a single thought. Maybe, just maybe, they could win. Rhea dropped silently into the relay chamber, heart hammering as the white pulse faded and the emergency lights flickered back to their dull amber glow. Her palms were slick with sweat, the heat of the conduit still clinging to her skin. She checked her wrist console. Kale's forces were redirected, sensors chasing false signatures hundreds of meters away. For a moment, relief washed over her, brief and fleeting. She had bought time, but not freedom. The chamber was empty, silent except for the soft hum of power coursing through the walls. Rhea's eyes swept the space, memorizing exit routes and weak points. She had to move fast. The Empire's patrols would recalibrate soon. The pulse was a temporary distraction. A human mechanic could misdirect sensors, but she couldn't mislead the Emperor himself. She accessed the local schematics, tracing the path back toward the coolant spine. Luma would be waiting there, glowing faintly in the shadowed trench. The thought of the child, small and fragile amid magnetic storms and industrial machinery, tightened her chest. She wouldn't fail her. Not now. Not ever. Patch, she whispered, activating her comlink. Status. Luma secured. Pulse successful. But predictive models suggest inbound forces will sweep this sector within 37 minutes. Rhea cursed softly. 37 minutes wasn't much. She had to get Luma to a safer point, somewhere the Empire's reach couldn't extend immediately, a place she could hold her ground if things went wrong. Her hands flew over the console, rerouting auxiliary power to secondary conduits, opening hidden maintenance shafts. Each adjustment was precise, a dance between chaos and control. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing down, the magnitude of it mirrored in the hum beneath her fingertips. Finally, the conduit to the coolant spine unlocked. She double-checked the data. Narrow, dangerous, but passable. Enough to move a small, cautious child. "All right," she murmured. "Time to get back." The climb back was a challenge. The narrow metal ribs pressed against her shoulders, and the conduit shivered with every vibration from the reactor core below. Sparks arced intermittently, tiny explosions of light that made her flinch, but she pressed on, dragging herself upward, each motion deliberate. When she reached the hatch, Luma's faint glow was already visible beneath the grate. Relief surged, followed by a pang of guilt. She had left the girl alone in the dark, however briefly. "Rhea." Luma's whisper was tinged with both worry and wonder. "I'm here," Rhea said, pressing her hand through the grate. "We move now. No pauses." Luma clambered up, sphere clutched tightly, eyes wide with both fear and awe. It was so bright. "Yeah, that's the station trying to kill us," Rhea muttered. "Come on." They crawled through the conduit, the walls vibrating with magnetic resonance. Sparks hissed, streaks of energy arcing dangerously close. Luma's small hands gripped the sphere, knuckles white, but she didn't falter. Rhea kept one hand near her own tools, makeshift weapons, yes, but enough to make a determined mechanic dangerous. At the next junction, the hum of distant patrols grew louder. Rhea froze, listening. Mechanical footsteps echoed through the hollow decks. They weren't fast, but they were methodical. Someone, or something, was hunting them. "Understood," she whispered. "We keep low. Let's see if humans can still be clever." She rerouted a maintenance drone through a secondary conduit, programming it to mimic their heat signatures and movement. The drone's optical sensors glowed briefly, ghosting their form through the thermal scanners above. The chase shifted elsewhere, detached, misled, delayed, but not gone. Luma's breath came in shallow whispers. "Are we safe?" Rhea shook her head slightly. "No. Not safe. Not yet. But invisible, for a while." The child's eyes filled with determination. "Then we keep moving." Rhea smiled faintly at her bravery. "Good. You've got it." The voice, Admiral Kale Oren, filled the comm again, calm and deliberate. "You're harboring the Emperor's daughter. That is treason under every known law. Hand her over, and I'll make sure your punishment is swift and merciful. Refuse, and the Emperor will make an example of you to the entire quadrant. Rhea muted the feed and leaned her head against the wall, eyes closed. Kale had been her mentor once, before she'd walked away from the fleet. Before she'd realized that loyalty to power wasn't the same as loyalty to people. He sounds angry, Luma whispered. He sounds bored, Rhea muttered. That's worse. She thought fast. There was no way out that didn't end in confrontation. And the longer they waited, the tighter the noose would draw. Rhea, Patch buzzed again, urgent now. They've isolated your biosignature. You can't hide much longer. Then I guess we stop hiding, Rhea said. Luma stared at her, wide-eyed. What are you doing? Rhea turned to her, her expression steady but her pulse hammering. I'm giving them something else to chase. You stay hidden, no matter what happens. Understand? The girl's eyes filled with light. But. No buts. Rhea's voice was firm but soft. You said humans fix things, right? Let me fix this. She activated her wrist console and set a short-range pulse, a burst of interference strong enough to register as her own energy signature, but displaced several decks over. It would draw Kale's forces away, at least for a while. But to make it convincing, she'd have to trigger it manually, from the relay hub 2 floors up. She stood, grabbing a cable hook for balance. I'll come back for you. You just stay by the coolant flow. Don't move until the lights turn white again. That means it's safe. Luma reached out, her small hand glowing faintly as it brushed Rhea's arm. You'll get hurt. Probably, Rhea admitted. But not as bad as I would if I let them take you. The child's glow dimmed in sorrow, but she nodded. You promise you'll come back? Rhea hesitated, then smiled, a tired, crooked smile that didn't quite hide her fear. I've got a pretty good record with broken things. Don't lose faith in me now. She turned before she could see the tears welling in the girl's eyes. Crawling back into the conduit, she felt the air grow heavier, charged with tension. The station's hum seemed to quicken, as though the metal itself knew what was coming. Each meter forward burned her palms. Each echo of her movement seemed too loud. But she kept going until the conduit opened into the relay chamber, a cathedral of circuits and wires glowing with pale light. Her console pinged, inbound signals, closing fast. Rhea crouched beside the relay, pulling off the access panel. Her fingers moved with mechanical precision, rerouting power nodes, amplifying the signal scatter. She could already hear the faint hiss of hydraulics as the bulkhead doors above began to unlock. They were here. All right, she whispered, fingers trembling over the final command. Let's make some noise. The pulse detonated in silence, light blooming outward in a wave of static that scrambled sensors for miles. The chamber filled with blinding radiance, a silent sun swallowing everything in white. When the light faded, Rhea was gone. Below, deep within the coolant shadows, Luma lifted her head as the station shuddered. The lights flickered once, then turned white. She smiled through her tears. Rhea had kept her word. For now. But in the heart of the Empire, an admiral adjusted his comset, expression unreadable. She still plays by her own rules, he murmured. Let's see how long she can keep it up. The hunt had changed shape, but it was far from over. The reactor chamber throbbed with a low, omnipresent hum that seemed to pulse through flesh and thought alike. The magnetic field shimmered in shades of blue and gold, casting flickering patterns over Rhea's face as she crouched beside Luma. Every few seconds, the air trembled with the deep resonance of shifting energy, like the heartbeat of a sleeping titan. It was dangerous to stay here, the radiation, the current density, the unpredictable discharges, but it was the only place the Empire's sensors couldn't reach. Luma sat cross-legged on the grated floor, the memory sphere resting in her lap. Its glow danced faintly, reflecting off the child's eyes, which seemed far older than they should have been. It's quiet here, she murmured. Rhea smiled faintly. Quiet's good. Quiet means we're still invisible. The girl's gaze remained fixed on the core below, mesmerized by the swirling energy. Does it hurt the station, being so loud? Rhea shook her head. Nah. That's just how power talks. It hums so everything knows it's alive. She didn't add that too much power, left untamed, always broke what it touched. The faint vibration of footsteps echoed from far above, faint but methodical. Patrols were tightening their net, sweeping through the decks one by one. Rhea knew it was only a matter of time before the search expanded to the maintenance rings. Pat's voice buzzed softly through her earpiece, distant but urgent. Rhea, they've locked down sections 13 through 17. You're boxed in. Recommend immediate relocation. Working on it, Rhea whispered. Can you scramble the trackers? Negative. They're running on direct Imperial frequencies now. Any interference would ping your location. Rhea swore under her breath. So they've upgraded to overkill. Great. Luma looked up, alarmed by her tone. They're coming again. Always, Rhea said grimly. But we're not going to let them find us. She scanned the room for an exit. The only way forward was through a narrow service conduit leading toward the coolant spine, a path she'd avoided for good reason. It wasn't designed for people. But there were no good options left. She knelt beside Luma. All right, kid. You trust me? The child's glow brightened faintly. Yes. Then whatever happens, don't stop following me. It's going to get loud and hot, but you keep moving. Got it? Luma nodded solemnly, clutching the sphere close. Rhea pried open the conduit hatch. A wave of hot air rolled out, metallic and sharp. Beyond the threshold, the crawlway descended into darkness, lit only by the flickering of emergency strips. She went first, crawling on hands and knees, the air humming against her skin. Luma followed, small and silent except for the faint clink of the sphere's crystalline surface. As they descended, the hum of the reactor deepened, vibrating through the conduit walls. Sparks arced occasionally from exposed cables. Rhea shielded Luma as best she could, guiding her through narrow bends until they reached a ledge overlooking the coolant flow. Below them, silver-blue liquid churned through transparent pipes, its glow ghostly and serene. This is the heart of it, Rhea said softly. The station breathes through here. Luma peered down. It's beautiful. Yeah, Rhea said, almost smiling. Most things that can kill you are. She checked her wrist console again. The signal grid pulsed red. They were being boxed in from above and below. The Empire wasn't guessing anymore. Someone was leading this search with precision. Someone who knew how engineers thought. Then, through the comm static, came a voice she hadn't heard in years. Deep. Controlled. Icy. Rhea Vance. Her spine went rigid. The voice continued, smooth as glass. I know you can hear me. You've always had a talent for hiding in places you shouldn't be. Luma's head tilted in confusion. Who is that? Rhea swallowed hard. An old employer. For the first time, she noticed how tightly Luma was clutching her hand. She didn't pull away. The small, bioluminescent fingers trembled in her grasp, and something protective, fierce, surged through her. The kind of feeling she hadn't known she was capable of anymore. The child's voice was a whisper. Do humans have fathers? Rhea blinked. We do. Do they get angry too? Some. Some just get tired. Yours. Rhea hesitated, the memories sharp as cut glass. He broke things he couldn't fix, she said finally. And I learned early how not to wait for someone else to put them back together. Luma nodded slowly, absorbing the answer like a secret. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, it was understanding. Then a new sound rolled through the air, a low, mechanical growl that wasn't part of the station's rhythm. Rhea turned sharply toward the source. Through the thin gaps in the maintenance paneling, a shimmer of light flared, the unmistakable blue of an Imperial locator beacon. Damn it, she muttered. They dropped trackers. They'll have this section mapped in minutes. She grabbed her pack, slinging it over her shoulder. We can't outrun the scans anymore. We'll need to go where sensors don't reach. Luma looked up. Where's that? Rhea smiled grimly. Inside the guts of the station. The reactor's magnetic field scrambles everything. Dangerous as hell, but invisible. Fear flickered in the girl's eyes. You'll come with me. Wouldn't dream of letting you go alone. They slipped through a narrow hatch into a utility conduit that led toward the core. Heat radiated from the walls, sweat gathering instantly along Rhea's brow. The air was thick, charged with ionized energy. One wrong move here and the currents could vaporize them both. As they crawled deeper, the hum of the station shifted pitch, vibrating through bone and skin. The sphere in Luma's arms began to pulse faster, reacting to the electromagnetic field. She gasped softly as holographic fragments shimmered around them. Flickers of landscapes, faces, memories. Among them, Rhea saw for a heartbeat the image of a towering figure cloaked in royal insignia. The Emperor, his expression carved in cold authority. The vision faded as quickly as it appeared. Luma's voice trembled. He's calling for me. Rhea's jaw tightened. Ignore it. He'll find you soon enough. Right now, we stay alive. The girl nodded, though her eyes stayed fixed on the space where her father's image had been. They reached a narrow ledge overlooking the glowing core. The magnetic field shimmered like liquid light, rippling through the air. For a moment, the world seemed weightless, suspended between destruction and safety. Rhea crouched beside the child. We'll wait here until the scans pass. After that, we'll find a way out. Luma looked at her with quiet certainty. He'll come himself. Then he can come down here, Rhea said. See what real work looks like. The faintest smile touched Luma's lips. You'd talk to him like that. Someone should. They fell silent again, the hum of the core surrounding them like a heartbeat. The memory sphere rested between them, its light steady now, half healed, half broken, just like the two who guarded it. Above, faint and distant, the echoes of search orders crackled through the station's intercoms. But down here, in the shimmer of the machine's pulse, Rhea and Luma waited together. Two small, defiant sparks in the vast machinery of Empire. And as the light flickered across Rhea's oil-stained hands, she realized that for the first time in years, she wasn't fixing something for pay, or pride, or necessity. She was fixing something that mattered. The crawl space stretched on endlessly, a ribbed tunnel of metal and recycled air that groaned with the faint tremor of the station's engines. Rhea moved first, one hand gripping the cool pipe overhead for balance, the other guiding Luma through the narrow dark. The girl's faint luminescence cast golden halos along the walls, turning oil stains into constellations. It would have been beautiful if it weren't so dangerous. Every glow was a beacon. Every sound, a threat. Keep low, Rhea whispered, though there was nowhere else to go. The ducts amplify noise. One bad move and half the deck will hear us. Luma nodded, her face solemn. Are they still looking? Definitely, Rhea muttered. An emperor doesn't just lose his kid without turning a few worlds upside down. The child didn't answer, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her fear. He'll be angry. Rhea wanted to tell her it would be all right, that fathers forgave, that this would all blow over once someone explained, but she couldn't bring herself to lie. Yeah, she said instead. He probably will. They reached a junction where the tunnel split in two. One path angled upward toward the residential decks, the other dipped down into the machinery levels. Rhea paused, studying the faint schematic glowing on her wrist display. The upper levels meant light, people, and cameras. The lower decks meant heat, noise, and near-total obscurity. She pointed downward. We go this way. They won't follow us where it's dirty. Luma peered down the dim slope. Why do you live here? Rhea chuckled softly. Because I fix things. And broken things don't live up there. The answer seemed to satisfy her. Together, they descended deeper, until the air grew thicker, warm with the scent of engine coolant and old metal. When they reached a grate, Rhea pried it loose and peeked through. The chamber below was one of the auxiliary maintenance bays, mostly automated, its walls alive with the dull pulse of reactor conduits. Empty. Perfect. She dropped down first, then helped Luma through. The child landed lightly, clutching the sphere close. For a few seconds, they both just listened. The hum of the machinery filled the silence like a heartbeat. Steady, safe, almost human. Rhea exhaled slowly. All right. We rest here a minute. Luma perched on a crate, small hands smoothing the folds of her tunic. The sphere pulsed faintly, reflecting her unease. Will they hurt you if they find us? Rhea sat beside her, rubbing grease from her hands onto her pants. Maybe. Depends on how angry they are. But you didn't do anything wrong. Rhea smiled without humor. Doesn't matter. People in charge rarely care about right or wrong, they care about control. And you being down here with me? That's something they don't control. The girl thought about that for a long moment. You sound like father when he talks about rebels. Maybe he's not entirely wrong, Rhea said quietly. The child tilted her head, confused, but Rhea didn't explain. There were truths a 7-rotation-old shouldn't have to untangle, even one born into a throne. A soft chime interrupted them. Rhea's wrist console flickered with a warning. The station's security net was recalibrating, new thermal scans sweeping through the decks. They had minutes, maybe less, before their heat signatures stood out like sparks in a void. All right, Rhea said, standing. We move again. I can reroute a maintenance drone to lead them off our trail, but we can't stay here. Luma's glow brightened with anxiety. Can't we just tell them the truth? That you're helping me? Rhea looked down at her, something like pity softening her voice. In my experience, kid, truth doesn't fix much when people have already decided what they want to see. She accessed a maintenance panel, fingers flying across the screen. Lines of code blinked red, then green. Somewhere above, one of her work drones came alive, broadcasting a falsified energy signature. That'll give us 10 minutes, maybe 15 if they're slow. The girl watched her with wide eyes. You're brave. Rhea snorted. No, I'm stupid. Big difference. But the compliment warmed something buried deep in her chest. She couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at her and seen courage instead of chaos. The faint sound of boots echoed again, closer now, above the metal ceiling. The security teams were sweeping in patterns, methodical, relentless. Rhea could hear the hum of their scanners. Down, she whispered. Hide behind the coolant tank. Luma obeyed, tucking herself into the shadows. Rhea crouched beside her, pulse hammering. Through the vent above, light swept across the floor as a drone passed, scanning for heat. The beam lingered on their section for one agonizing heartbeat, then moved on. Rhea didn't breathe until the hum faded into silence. Luma exhaled shakily. That was close. Rhea nodded. Too close. Statistically, emotional decisions result in catastrophic outcomes. Rhea smirked faintly. Then I guess we're overdue for one. The sound of marching footsteps interrupted the moment, distant but approaching. Rhea froze, glancing toward the sealed door. Through the narrow seam of the viewport, she saw the faint shimmer of armored guards descending the corridor, their visors gleaming with the reflection of status readouts. Luma saw them too. Her fingers tightened around the memory sphere until her knuckles turned pale. They found me, she whispered. Not yet, Rhea said, pulling open a floor panel. Come on. Crawl space runs beneath the deck. We'll take it to the service elevators. Luma hesitated, fear flickering across her luminous face. I'm not supposed to crawl in tunnels. Welcome to the human way of doing things, Rhea muttered, helping her down into the dark. The child disappeared beneath the grate, clutching the sphere close. Rhea followed, sliding the panel shut above them just as the door outside hissed open. The sound of armored boots filled the workshop. From the narrow tunnel, Rhea could see faint shafts of light spilling through cracks. Shadows of soldiers swept the room. Maintenance bays clear, one of them said. Heat signatures minimal. Continue sweep. Another voice responded, deeper, sharper. The Emperor's orders are absolute. If the child is found in human custody, the offender will be detained immediately. Rhea's breath caught. Luma reached for her hand in the dark, small and shaking. Rhea gave it a reassuring squeeze, silent but certain. The soldiers lingered, scanners humming, before finally moving on. When the last echo of boots faded, Rhea exhaled the breath she'd been holding. Still think emotional decisions lead to catastrophe? She whispered to the drone's faint signal in her ear. Patch replied dryly, Correction, delayed catastrophe. Rhea almost laughed, but the sound died in her throat when she saw Luma's face. Wide-eyed, pale, caught between fear and wonder. You okay? Rhea asked. The girl nodded slowly. They would have taken you, too. Yeah, Rhea said. Probably worse. Then I'm glad you didn't let them. Rhea looked away. Don't thank me yet, kid. We're not safe. She peered down the long, narrow crawlspace, lit only by the faint gold glow of Luma's body. The path ahead twisted toward the service decks, old, half-abandoned spaces the Lycery rarely entered. It wasn't much, but it was distance. And for now, distance was enough. Rhea placed a hand on the metal wall, feeling the pulse of the station through her palm. Somewhere above them, the Emperor himself was tightening his search. Down here, a mechanic and a lost child were rewriting the rules of what could and couldn't be fixed. Let's move, Rhea whispered, voice steady now. Before the universe remembers it wants us caught. Luma crawled forward into the darkness, her small form glowing softly against the steel. Rhea followed, one hand always close, her other gripping the tool that had become her weapon. Behind them, in the sealed workshop, the faint light of the memory sphere lingered for a moment before dimming completely, like a heartbeat swallowed by shadow. The maintenance corridor stretched like an artery through the heart of the station, dimly lit and lined with trembling conduits that pulsed with the ship's slow, electric rhythm. Rhea moved quickly, her boots silent on the grated floor. The girl kept close beside her, light flickering faintly under her translucent skin like the reflection of distant stars. It made stealth nearly impossible, but Rhea didn't have the heart to tell her to stop glowing. Some things weren't meant to be hidden. Keep your head down, Rhea murmured, glancing back. Luma obeyed instantly, clutching the memory sphere tight against her chest. Its glow pulsed in time with her heartbeat, soft and anxious. The distant thrum of patrol drones echoed from deeper in the deck. Rhea's pulse quickened. It was only a matter of time before the security grid swept this section. The Emperor's child missing aboard an Imperial station, every sensor, camera, and synthetic hound would be searching. Rhea could almost feel the weight of their attention, cold and inevitable. She ducked into a side hatch and motioned for Luma to follow. The chamber beyond was a compact workspace, her own, cluttered and alive with the scent of metal dust. The familiarity steadied her for a moment. The walls were lined with tools scavenged from half a dozen worlds, and a small holodrone flickered awake as she entered. Its optical sensor glowed blue. Patch, seal the door, Rhea whispered. The drone whirred obediently, scanning Luma with mild curiosity. Visitor detected, it chirped in a tone of manufactured cheer. Species: Lycery. Age: juvenile. Probability of diplomatic incident if harmed: 99.8%. Rhea glared at it. Not helping. Noted. Adjusting tone to grave concern, Patch replied. Do you require assistance hiding the Imperial heir before the entire station implodes? Luma looked up sharply. Rhea shot the drone a look that could melt steel. Ignore it. Patch has a loose circuit where his sense of timing should be. The drone's lens flickered. That is factually accurate. Rhea exhaled through her nose, pacing once to think. She didn't have much time. Hiding the girl here would be suicide. The workshop was registered under her ID. Still, she needed to stall long enough to think of a way off the deck. The next transport shuttle wasn't due for hours. Luma set the sphere gently on the table, watching Rhea with a quiet, trusting expression that made the woman's stomach twist. The kid didn't understand how much danger she'd brought with her, how easily Rhea's life could be stripped away with a single misstep. Rhea, the girl said softly, her voice a careful melody. Did I do something wrong? The question was so small, so honest, it nearly broke her. No, kid. You didn't. You just, she paused, searching for the right words, ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Luma blinked. But you said humans fix wrong things. Rhea stared at her, caught between a sigh and a laugh. Yeah, that's the problem. She sat heavily on her stool, fingers drumming against her thigh. All right. I need to figure this out. They'll trace your biosignature eventually. Maybe I can scramble it for a while. Scramble? Hide what makes you you, Rhea explained, already reaching for her tools. Your people use bioresonance for ID. I can dampen your signal, make the sensors think you're just another drone. Luma nodded solemnly. Will it hurt? Not if I do it right. The girl sat very still while Rhea attached a small dampener patch to the side of her neck, careful not to damage the soft, translucent ridges. The patch flickered green as it synced with her pulse. There, Rhea murmured. Invisible. Mostly. Luma smiled faintly, but her eyes were troubled. If father can't find me, he'll think I'm gone. Rhea hesitated. Maybe that'll make him look harder. Or stop looking. The words hung heavy in the air. Rhea had no answer. Instead, she adjusted the dampener's frequency, masking her own growing guilt with movement. She wasn't built for this, protecting children, defying empires. She fixed broken engines, not fragile destinies. But the child's presence had already rewired something in her that no tool could undo. Patch hovered nearby, lowering its voice to a whisper. You understand the consequences, yes? Harboring her could be considered treason. Yeah, Rhea said, not looking up. Add it to the list. The drone paused, optical sensor narrowing. You could still turn her in. No one would blame you. Rhea's hand stilled. She's a scared kid, Patch. Not a malfunctioning unit. I'm not handing her over to people who'll treat her like cargo. Rhea exhaled, rubbing her face with both hands. I didn't say I would, kid. I just, stars above. Okay. She paced once, muttering under her breath. The Emperor's daughter, sitting in her greasy workshop, playing with a near-sentient piece of Imperial tech. Every sensor in the system was probably already combing the decks for her. You shouldn't be here, she said finally. Luma's voice was very small. You want me to go? Rhea froze mid-step. The quiet tremor in that voice was worse than any alarm. No, she said at once. That's not what I meant. If someone finds you here, we'll both be in trouble. Big trouble. The girl's lower lip trembled, and for a moment the poised young noble vanished, replaced by a frightened child. I didn't mean to make trouble. Rhea crouched down, lowering herself to eye level. Hey, no, you didn't. Trouble just likes to find people like me. It's sort of my specialty. The tension in the child's shoulders eased slightly. Listen, Rhea continued, voice softer now. I'll keep helping you, all right? But we've got to be careful. You're not exactly inconspicuous. Luma tilted her head, the faintest smile tugging her lips. Because I glow. That, and because half the station's probably tearing itself apart looking for you. The girl's expression faltered again. Father will be angry. Probably, Rhea admitted. But I don't think he's angry because he doesn't care. He's angry because he's scared. Luma looked up, surprised. He's never scared. Rhea smiled faintly. Everyone's scared of losing what they love, even if they pretend they aren't. The child said nothing for a while, her fingers tracing idle circles across the glowing sphere. The quiet hum of the workshop filled the space between their thoughts. After a long silence, Luma asked, Do you have someone who would look for you if you were lost? The question hit harder than Rhea expected. She thought of her old crew, the ones who'd left when pay dried up, the lovers who'd vanished between ports. The silence after each goodbye. No, she said finally. But that's all right. I like being the one who finds, not the one who gets found. Luma considered this, her small face grave. Then I found you. Rhea looked at her, startled. The words carried a strange, quiet weight, as though spoken by something far older than the child before her. Guess you did, she murmured. A low chime echoed from somewhere beyond the workshop door. It wasn't the sound of footsteps this time, but an automated alert, security proximity scan, wideband frequency. Rhea's console blinked crimson for a moment before she shut it off. Someone was running an active search grid through the lower decks. All right, she said quickly, grabbing her jacket. Lesson time's over. We're moving. Luma clutched the sphere tighter. Are they coming for me? Let's not find out, Rhea said. She helped the girl down from the bench, scanning the corridor through the narrow viewport. No one yet, but the alarms would spread fast. Stay close to me, Rhea murmured. And whatever happens, don't talk unless I tell you to. Luma nodded solemnly. Her glow dimmed to a faint shimmer, as though instinctively trying to hide itself. Rhea took a breath, one hand on the door control. She didn't know where they would go, only that staying meant discovery. The child beside her was more than a person now. She was a spark dropped into dry tinder, and Rhea had just chosen to carry the flame. The door slid open with a hiss. Cold air swept in from the corridor beyond. All right, kid, Rhea said under her breath, eyes on the dark passage ahead. Let's see if I can fix this too. And with that, they stepped out into the unknown, the glow of the memory sphere casting just enough light to lead them forward, and far too much to ever stay hidden for long. Rhea woke to the sound of gentle humming. It wasn't mechanical this time but living, soft, melodic, and oddly comforting. Luma sat cross-legged on the workbench, the repaired sphere cradled between her palms. The light from it painted the girl's translucent skin in soft amber hues, shifting like sunlight through water. For a moment, Rhea simply watched her, half forgetting that the child before her was anything more than a stray who'd wandered in from the station corridors. But she wasn't. Every word, every flicker of that strange device whispered of something larger, something Rhea had no business being part of. She rubbed her eyes, the stale taste of recycled air on her tongue. You're up early. Luma glanced at her, the melody fading. I couldn't sleep. It dreams when I do. Rhea blinked. The toy. The memory keeper, Luma corrected softly, as though it were alive enough to deserve the title. It shows me things. Sometimes things I don't want to remember. Rhea sat up, her muscles stiff from sleeping on a pile of coils. Sounds like a lousy bedtime companion. The girl smiled faintly. It helps me remember I'm real. The words hit harder than expected. Rhea knew what it was like to need proof of your own existence, the long months on ships where no one spoke your name, where grease-stained hands were your only conversation partners. She didn't say that aloud. Instead, she stood and crossed to the workbench, peering over the child's shoulder. You sure you want to keep poking at that thing? Feels like it's poking back. Luma tilted her head, bioluminescence pulsing faintly along her neck ridges. You're afraid of it. Not afraid, Rhea said, though it wasn't entirely true. Just cautious. I like knowing what I'm fixing. That thing's smarter than I am, and I don't trust anything that glows for no reason. The girl looked up at her with that unnervingly perceptive gaze. You glow too. You just don't see it. Rhea snorted. That's just the welding sparks, kid. But the comment lingered, softening the air between them. The workshop lights flickered briefly, a power fluctuation. Rhea checked the panel instinctively, but everything registered normal. Still, a prickling unease ran through her. The station's hum felt off, the rhythm of the systems a fraction slower than before, like the facility was holding its breath. Luma's attention had shifted to the sphere again. She turned it gently, tracing her fingers along the faint seam where Rhea had fused it. You're very kind, she said quietly. Not really, Rhea replied. I charge too much and complain constantly. But you helped anyway. Rhea hesitated. Yeah, well, that's what humans do. We fix what's broken. Even when we shouldn't. The girl considered that, as though storing it somewhere deep. My father says humans are dangerous because they want to change everything they touch. Your father sounds like someone who's never had to fix an engine in his life. Luma's laughter was light and crystalline, bouncing off the walls like chimes. He has people to fix things for him. I bet he does, Rhea muttered. The child didn't catch the tone, but the words drew a shadow of thought across her face. He says it's better that way. That if I learn to fix things myself, I'll forget who I am. Rhea looked at her then, really looked. The pristine stitching on her tunic, the faint pattern of gold lines woven into the fabric, the way her words carried practiced formality even when softened by youth. This wasn't just a lost child. This was someone raised in a palace of rules, one who had never been allowed to break anything for fear it might reflect poorly on her lineage. Luma, Rhea said carefully, who exactly is your father? The girl blinked, as though realizing she had said too much. He is important. Important how? She hesitated, then whispered, he rules many worlds. Rhea went still. He's the Emperor. Luma flinched at the title, her glow dimming as though she regretted speaking. You said you wouldn't tell anyone. Luma looked down, guilty. I wanted to see where the humans work. Father says humans break things. I wanted to see if they fix them too. Rhea tried to laugh, but it came out more like a sigh. Well, you picked the right human. Breaking things is my specialty. Fixing them's the job I pretend to be good at. Luma studied her. You sound sad when you joke. The word struck harder than Rhea expected. She busied herself with the tools again, unwilling to meet those perceptive silver eyes. Maybe I am. But fixing things helps. Makes the noise in your head quieter. They worked in silence for a few minutes, the kind of silence that wasn't empty but full of focus, of shared purpose. Rhea adjusted the final conduit, and the sphere pulsed brighter, almost whole. The crack no longer split it. Instead, a faint seam glowed like a healed scar. There, Rhea said quietly. That's as close to fixed as I can get without more tools. It'll need a full recalibration in a sterile lab. Luma's expression fell, the hope in her eyes dimming. So it's still broken. Rhea hesitated. No. Just waiting to be reminded what it is. She held the device out. Luma took it gently, as if cradling a sleeping bird. When her fingers brushed the surface, a faint melody filled the air, a crystalline sound, haunting and soft. Rhea realized it wasn't coming from the device alone. It resonated from the girl herself, her body responding to the sphere's energy. The song rose and fell in waves, filled with fragments of emotion. Joy, sorrow, loneliness. It was alien, but something in it felt human, the ache of remembering too much and too little all at once. When it faded, Rhea's throat felt tight. Beautiful, she whispered. Luma's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. It still hurts when it sings. Maybe that means it's still alive, Rhea said gently. The girl nodded, her light flickering faintly in agreement. Then she reached out, small hand brushing Rhea's oil-stained fingers. Thank you. Rhea froze. It had been a long time since gratitude felt real, not transactional. Don't thank me yet, she said. It's not done. Outside the workshop's sealed door, the faint rumble of movement echoed. Boots, maybe, or machinery shifting. The sound passed too quickly to identify, but it pulled a shadow of unease through her chest. She forced herself to ignore it. Luma was watching her still, trusting, unaware of the tension building beyond these walls. Can I stay until it's better? The child asked. Rhea hesitated. The responsible thing would be to call station authorities, report a lost child. The selfish thing, the human thing, was to keep her safe a little longer. Yeah, she said finally, forcing a smile. You can stay. But we'll have to keep quiet. Some folks don't like humans meddling in fancy tech. Luma nodded solemnly. I'll be quiet. Rhea leaned back in her chair, studying the tiny alien now perched on her stool, clutching the glowing sphere like a talisman. The light painted both their faces in soft gold, the human and the lycery reflected in one another. Somewhere deep in her gut, Rhea knew she had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Whatever this device meant, whoever this child truly was, the simple act of saying yes had pulled her into something vast and dangerous. Still, when Luma smiled faintly and whispered, "You fixed it a little," Rhea couldn't bring herself to regret it. "Yeah," she said, eyes flicking to the sealed door as that low rumble returned, closer this time. "A little." And with that small, fragile victory glowing between them, the first ripple of real trouble began to stir beyond the workshop walls. The workshop was a hollow cube of hum and light, cluttered with half-dismantled drones, coolant tubes, and the faint perfume of hot metal. Rhea set the cracked sphere on the table, careful not to startle the child who lingered beside her like a silent shadow. Luma's eyes followed every motion with reverence and fear, as though the woman before her might perform either a miracle or an execution. Rhea flexed her fingers, the faint tremor of fatigue running through them. You weren't kidding, kid. This thing's complicated. She prodded the sphere with a stylus, watching its fractured seams resist the contact. The inner light flickered in patterns she couldn't quite decipher, neither mechanical nor biological, something in between. Memory circuits, quantum threading, reactive biogel matrix. This is far beyond civilian tech. Luma hugged her knees. You can't fix it. Rhea glanced at her, hearing not doubt but quiet despair. Didn't say that. Just means I'll have to get creative. Humans are good at that. A small smile ghosted across Luma's lips before fading as the sphere emitted a faint chirp, like a dying bird. Rhea tapped a few diagnostics into her wrist console, watching alien code dance across the interface. The data was incomprehensible, but she recognized the rhythm, heartbeat, memory pulse, neural bonding. She frowned. You said this thing remembers you. What exactly does that mean? Luma hesitated. It was made for me when I was born. It keeps my memories, my feelings, safe. It sings them back when I forget. That's beautiful, Rhea murmured. And dangerous. If it's tied to your neural patterns, repairing it could hurt you. The girl's shoulders squared, small but stubborn. I don't care. Rhea stared at her for a long moment, struck by the steel beneath the child's trembling voice. Whoever this kid was, she wasn't fragile in spirit. The universe had given her the face of a dream and the resolve of a survivor. She leaned back, wiping sweat from her temple. All right, then. No promises, but I'll try. You'll need to stay close. It may respond better if it feels you nearby. Luma moved closer without hesitation, placing her small hands flat on the table. The sphere pulsed faintly under her touch, responding to the proximity of its owner. See? That's something, Rhea said softly. It still knows you. For a heartbeat, the air between them felt sacred, an island of quiet understanding amid the machinery's restless hum. Then Rhea's comlink buzzed. She ignored it. A mechanic's schedule meant nothing when a child's hope was bleeding out on her workbench. She reached for her toolkit, replacing precision with instinct. The Lycery built their devices with elegance and mathematics. Humans built with intuition and scars. Where their engineers saw beauty and symmetry, Rhea saw opportunity in imperfection. She bypassed locked pathways, bridging them with pieces of a human drone circuit. It was crude, maybe even reckless, but it worked, the flicker steadied, and the glow deepened. Luma gasped. It's healing. Not quite, Rhea said, adjusting a wire. More like remembering how to be whole. As the device stabilized, faint symbols shimmered across its surface. They were Lycery script, words she couldn't read, but Luma could. The child's eyes widened in recognition, and she whispered, "It's showing my first sunrise." The image projected faintly above the sphere, a swirl of gold clouds and violet skies, seen from a balcony high above a world Rhea had never visited. The beauty of it made her chest ache. "That's you?" Rhea asked. Luma nodded. "My home." Rhea let her gaze linger on the vision before it faded. "You miss it." The girl's glow dimmed a little. "It's not the same anymore. Everyone is so quiet. I'm not supposed to laugh or talk to anyone. Father says noise is for children, and I'm not a child anymore." Rhea looked at her, startled by the solemnity in her voice. "How old are you?" 7 rotations, Luma said. "But father says I must act like 15. There it was again, that word. Father. The one whose image had flashed inside the memory sphere. Rhea didn't need confirmation to feel the truth coiling behind it. The child wasn't just anyone. She was a symbol wrapped in innocence. And somewhere above this sterile station, a father with unimaginable power was looking for her. Rhea exhaled slowly. "Luma, when you came down here, did anyone know where you went?" "Luma," Rhea repeated. "Pretty name. I'm Rhea." Luma tested it, the sound soft on her tongue. "Rhea." She smiled, the first genuine smile since she'd appeared. "You fix things." "Just about everything," Rhea said, twisting a microspanner. "Ships, drones, broken hearts, though I charge extra for those." Luma giggled, a sound like wind through crystal chimes. It echoed off the bay walls, fragile but bright. For a moment, Rhea forgot where she was, the sterile empire, the cold politics of alien courts, and just saw a kid watching a miracle happen. A faint pulse flickered from the device. Rhea leaned closer. "There you go," she murmured. "Talk to me." The sphere emitted a soft hum, lines of light crawling across its surface like veins awakening. Luma gasped, hands clasped together. "It remembers me." "Give it a sec," Rhea said. The hum steadied, and the crack sealed halfway, glowing brighter now. It wasn't fixed, not yet, but it was alive again. Luma reached out, fingertips brushing the surface. The device emitted a faint projection, a blurred image of two figures, one small, one towering. It faded almost instantly. "That's new," Rhea said. "Didn't mean to trigger that." But Luma wasn't listening. Her expression had changed, hope mingled with fear. "That was my father." Rhea looked at her more closely. The intricate patterns on Luma's collarbones shimmered like gold script, the kind reserved for the Lycery upper class. And suddenly, the absence of guards, the fineness of her robes, the craftsmanship of her toy, it all made sense. "Oh," Rhea whispered. "You're not just anybody, are you?" Luma blinked, uncomprehending. "You said you would fix it." Rhea managed a thin smile. "Yeah, kid. I did." Outside, the faint wail of a security siren echoed somewhere in the upper decks, a sound easy to miss amid the mechanical thrum, but Rhea heard it all the same. She didn't know yet that the Emperor's flagship had entered orbit, or that the entire station was now searching for one missing Lycery child. She only knew that the little girl before her was clutching hope like a lifeline, and that walking away wasn't in her nature. She reached out, gently closing the child's hands over the half-repaired sphere. "We'll finish this," Rhea said. "But maybe somewhere a little quieter, yeah?" Luma nodded, relief softening her features. The faint glow of the repaired toy reflected in her eyes like captured starlight. As they slipped deeper into the shadows of the maintenance corridor, Rhea cast one last glance at the empty dock. The hum of the station went on, indifferent and endless. Somewhere above, power shifted hands among those who ruled the stars. Down here, in the grease and flicker of a human workshop, something smaller, but maybe just as important, had begun to change. And though she couldn't yet name it, Rhea felt it all the same. That peculiar spark that always came before trouble, and the quiet conviction that this was something worth fixing.
The clang of metal on metal echoed faintly in Docking Bay 42, swallowed by the vast hum of the orbital station. Rhea Calder crouched beneath the wing of a maintenance shuttle, grease streaking her cheek like a battle mark. The smell of ozone and lubricant clung to her clothes, a scent she had long ago stopped noticing. Humans were a rarity out here, out beyond the fringe where the Lycery Empire's polished spires and crystalline halls rose above clouds of ammonia and ambition. But a mechanic was a mechanic, and ships didn't care about politics. They broke, and someone had to fix them. The plasma torch sputtered in her hand, coughed once, then died. "Of course," Rhea muttered, tapping it twice against her thigh. "You're all attitude and no spark, just like every tool I own." She reached for another connector when a small sound pricked the edge of her awareness. Something soft, fragile, and out of place in the mechanical symphony of the dock. A sniffle, then a sob. Rhea froze. The sound came again, a trembling hiccup followed by the faint scuff of bare feet. She pushed herself out from under the shuttle, wiping her hands on her ragged work pants. A small figure stood near the bay doors, a child but not human. The creature's skin shimmered faintly, as though stars flickered beneath the surface. Translucent ridges along the neck pulsed with a rhythm like breathing light. Large eyes, liquid silver in the station's dim glow, looked up at her with an expression that could only mean one thing: despair. Rhea softened instantly. "Hey there, little one. You lost." The alien child hesitated, clutching something close to her chest. A spherical device, cracked down the middle, its inner filaments dim. The sobs hiccuped again before she managed to whisper, her voice high and melodic. "Can you fix it?" Rhea blinked. The words were carefully enunciated, the common tongue thick with accent but clear enough to understand. The girl extended the object, trembling hands cupping it as if afraid it might crumble further. Rhea knelt. Let's see what we've got. She took the device gently, feeling its warmth against her palm. It was light, too light to be metal alone. Organic weave, maybe. Lattice circuits. The fracture ran through a central seam that glowed faintly when she tilted it toward the light. Not a toy, then. Something delicate, maybe personal. What happened to it? Rhea asked. The child's throat fluttered with faint light before she answered. It fell. It was my friend. That last word caught Rhea off guard. Your friend, huh? Then we'd better do right by them. The girl's lips curved in a tiny, hopeful smile. Rhea glanced around. No guards, no attendants, odd. The Lasari were nothing if not orderly, especially with younglings. This one had wandered deep into the engineering decks, a place no child should have reached without notice. Still, the tears streaking her luminous cheeks were genuine enough, and whatever questions waited could wait longer than a crying kid. She motioned toward her workbench. Come on, we'll take a look over there. I can't promise miracles, but I'm good with broken things. The child padded after her, silent but for the faint hum of her bioluminescent skin. When Rhea set the sphere down under the lamplight, the girl climbed onto a crate to watch, folding her knees to her chest. The gesture, so small, so universal, tightened something in Rhea's chest. The casing resisted her tools at first, sealing tight when she tried to pry it open. Protective response, she murmured. Smart little piece of tech. The child tilted her head. It knows it is hurt. Rhea looked up. It knows. It remembers things, the girl said, almost shyly. It keeps them safe. But when it broke, it forgot me. That stopped Rhea for a full second. She studied the fracture again, now with a new kind of respect. If this was a memory keeper, one of those symbiotic Lasari constructs that recorded neural resonance, it wasn't just broken metal. It was the closest thing the child had to a living companion. All right, Rhea said quietly. Then we'll remind it who you are. The girl's eyes widened, silver pupils dilating. You can do that? Rhea smirked. I can try. That's the human way. She went to work, steady hands adjusting, bridging severed conduits with bits of repurposed wire. The station lights dimmed briefly, a scheduled power shift, but it gave the illusion of night descending over them. The girl's glow became the only light in the bay, casting her in an ethereal halo. She watched every motion as if Rhea were performing sacred magic. What's your name, kid? Rhea asked while recalibrating a joint. The girl hesitated. Luma.